What's up, Internet? This is Skinny from Coburg Nissan. No, I'm at home today, not feeling so good, tumblies grumbling, just resting up on the couch. And while I was resting, I got to thinking, what is the most popular question that I've had asked over the last 10 years in car sales about buying a vehicle? And the number one thing that kept coming to mind was leasing versus financing and the advantages and disadvantages to either or. And that can really relate to your own personal situation. But there's a lot of myths and a lot of misinformation that's out there. So I wanted to talk to you today about the advantages or disadvantages to leasing or financing your new vehicle on this 2-Minute Tuesday. This is going to go way over 2 minutes, by the way. Okay, guys, so it's the age-old question. Should I lease or finance my new vehicle? Now, a lot of it's going to depend on you personally, your driving habits, your own situations. But to help you better understand if you should lease or finance, I'm going to give you the details of both and help you compare them. Because really it can depend on the life cycle of your vehicle, how often you like to switch cars. If you're in business for yourself, can you write off a lease payment? There's a whole bunch of different things. So I'm going to give you the details of both so that way you can say this applies to me better or this applies to me better. And I think it'll help you make a little bit more sense of you should lease or finance your new vehicle. Okay, so first let's talk about financing. Financing is easy, it's very straightforward, it's not complicated. Financing, it's simple. You select the vehicle, you select the term that you want to finance for, and then you select the down payment, and out spits out your monthly payment. Pretty straightforward. You make that payment for 60, 72, 84 months, whatever the term is, and you own the car at the end of it. Very black and white, very straightforward. If at any point during that finance you want to trade in your vehicle and get something new, you can do that. They would look at what the buyout is or how much you owe left on the vehicle compared to what it's worth on a trade-in. And then if there's any difference, whether it's a positive or a negative, you either pay or collect and get into a new car. Like I said, pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's talk about leasing. So leasing is like renting a vehicle for a set number of years. Now that lease is going to have certain terms or conditions to protect you, the leasee, and us, the lessor. Kind of sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings. I know, leasee, lessor. Anyway, so the terms and conditions, pretty simple. It's kilometers, damage on the vehicle, and term. That's it. So when we talk about kilometers, leases are usually anywhere from 20 to 24,000 kilometers a year, or you can go up to 35,000 kilometers a year if you're a high mileage driver. Now, you don't have to stick to that yearly kilometer allowance. It's a total allowance at the end of the lease. So in other words, if you did a 4-year lease with 24,000 kilometers a year, you're allowed to bring the vehicle back with 96,000 kilometers or less without any penalty or charges. Now, the charges, really simple. If you're over kilometers, they're going to charge you a set fee per kilometer plus taxes. It could be 10 or 12 cents depending on what manufacturer. And you pay that at the end when you return the lease. Pretty simple. The other one is damage. Damage is so simple to describe. The way I've always said it is, if it's something on the car that bothers you, it will probably bother them. Now, I know that's a bit of a gray area because some people are more particular than others, but the rule of thumb is if there's a dent bigger than the size of a toonie, they're going to have an issue with that. If there's a scratch longer than 2 inches, especially if it's deep, they're going to have an issue with that. But they allow for what's called normal wear and tear, which is stone chips, light scratches, things like that. They totally allow for that. They understand you're driving a vehicle, road conditions, etc. So it's nothing you have to be really overly concerned with. And the other thing is you don't have to wait until the end of the lease to make any minor repairs you might have to do before returning it. So if you've got a larger scratch or a bigger dent, you can get those repairs done before you return the car, obviously at a little bit better price if you can work out something with a local body shop or whatever it's needed. So another thing that I hear when we talk about leasing and financing with customers is customers say, well, I don't want to lease a car because I don't own anything at the end. Well, that's kind of the point. The point is that you're going to rent your vehicle for the term that you want to rent it for. And at the end, you have the options to either buy the vehicle or return the vehicle because let's face it, your needs can change quite quickly. Say you're single and all of a sudden 2 or 3 years you're married and have a child. Or the opposite, you have kids that you used to have to take to hockey and now they've gone out of the house and you don't need a bigger SUV, for example. There's a lot of different things that can change over the course of 3, 4, 5 years that will make you want to get a new vehicle to fit your new lifestyle. So do you want to own something that is depreciating? Because let's face it, cars depreciate. Or would you rather rent something for a small period of time and then decide at the end of that what should I do? Should I keep the vehicle or should I buy something different to suit my new lifestyle perhaps? So to better explain that, I'm going to use a cool little diagram here, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense, but I think it's critical information to help you make a better decision when you're looking at buying a new car. So bear with me, let me set this up, and we'll have a kind of fun way to show you leasing versus financing from a financial perspective. Okay, so for this demonstration, we're going to assume that both these vehicles are 2018 Nissan Rogues. Now I'm going to show you the difference between a lease and a finance payment. So this top vehicle here is our leased vehicle. Now, if we were to lease this vehicle for 4 years, the payment would be $520. This vehicle here is our financed vehicle. Now, to keep the payments as close to the lease as possible, so that way we're being fair, I had to do an 84-month finance, which is $530 a month. So as you can see, to have a finance payment close to a lease payment, you have to stretch out the finance term to the longest length possible in order to achieve a similar payment. Okay, now let's talk about your options after 4 years, because like I said, that's kind of the critical point. After 4 to 4.5, 5 years, people start deciding if they want a new car because it's about to come out of their warranty period. They get that new car itch. So let's see the advantages or disadvantages leasing versus financing after 4 years. So these two cars are exactly the same. They both have, let's say, 90,000 kilometers on them, and they're both 4 years old. So here's our leased vehicle. We're at the end of our 4-year term. We don't have any major damage, and we're within our kilometer allowance. We are able to now return this vehicle to Nissan at no additional charge and walk away and explore our options for a new vehicle. Now, if we wanted to purchase this vehicle, we would pay the residual value or the buyback value of $15,900 plus HST, bringing the total to $17,973. After paying that amount, we would own the vehicle, the car would be ours. Small tip, you can refinance that amount through your dealership at a great rate as well, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Now here's our finance vehicle. Because we took an 84-month term to keep the payments as close to a lease as possible, we still owe money on this vehicle. In fact, we owe $14,675 to pay off our remaining loan. So let's assume we wanted to trade the car in at this point because we need a new vehicle because we've had a lifestyle change. We would have to look at what is the value of that car. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let's use a neutral number in between the residual value and the value that you owe. Let's say the car is worth $15,000. So in this situation, you would have a little bit of equity that you would be able to use towards purchasing another vehicle. So let's move this lease car along as costing you more than a finance at this point. Now let's throw a real world scenario at this. Let's say during the 4 years you owned your vehicle, unfortunately you got in a small rear end collision for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Nothing crazy, but nonetheless an accident. So what happens now? Well, the lease vehicle, although at this point it's a disadvantage because there's no equity to claim, all of a sudden that equity's gone right out the window because this car, instead of being worth $15,000, is now worth maybe $11,000 or $10,000 because of that major accident. So now the tables have turned. This vehicle now is only worth $10,000 when you owe $14,675. So there's $4,765 that has to be accounted for somewhere to make this vehicle equal again. The only way to do that is to refinance it in your new car loan, commonly referred to as negative equity. Now let's say during those 4 years, there was also a model change. Let's say that this Rogue, being now that it's 2020, is a completely different vehicle with only hybrid options or something crazy like that. Your 2018 Rogue, all of a sudden, is not worth as much as well. So we have to continue moving the vehicle down the depreciated line. All the while, this lease vehicle remains exactly the same no matter if it's been involved in an accident or if they've had a model change or absolutely anything. The only thing that can affect you negatively with a leased car is going over your kilometers or having major damage on the car. That's it. So as you can see here with the real world example, your leased vehicle stays exactly the same, whereas on a financed vehicle to get into a new car, you now have to pay negative equity. Again, we don't have a crystal ball to determine exactly what's going to happen with that vehicle. If there's going to be a model change, if unfortunately you're going to be involved in an accident, we have no idea to determine that. So the risk essentially is on you with a finance. You are the only one that can control the value of that vehicle, or should I say not control the value of that vehicle, but be on the hook for it. Whereas on a lease, at the end of your lease, you drop off the car. Now, last but not least, let's talk about total cost of ownership. In other words, at the end of a finance or at the end of the lease, if you even wanted to own the car, what would be more beneficial? So the easiest one is to move the finance car. Let's move the finance car to 84 months and give us a total value of the payments we've made over 84 months. Okay, now let's move this vehicle to the 4-year mark where you now have to purchase the vehicle out. And as I said, the buyback is $15,900 plus HST, which is $17,973, bringing your total to $42,933, including all the lease payments and the buyback, including tax. So as you can see, if you were to purchase out the lease at the end of the term, it is actually cheaper than financing the vehicle for 84 months. Now, a smart person is going to say, well, of course, that's $17,000 you're not paying interest on. So here's that cool tip I was going to tell you about. At the end of 48 months, the dealership can purchase the car and refinance it for you under their certified program at a low rate. For example, we have 1.9% financing for 3 years. So if we did a 36-month finance, the total payments would come to $18,612, that bringing the total price to $43,572, still making the lease car cheaper by $633 at the end of your lease. And you assumed no risk over the 4 years of driving it, such as accidents, a model change, etc. If you love the car after 4 years, if you want to own it, you can still finance it for 36 months and be ahead of that 84-month finance. All right, guys, that concludes our 2-Minute Tuesday. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment box, and I'm going to do my best to answer them for you on our next 2-Minute Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This is Skinny at Coburg Nissan.